I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands and waters I currently work and live upon, the Yalukit Willam clan of the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders past and present and extend this respect to any First Nations people watching this program. In My Skin is a work I made in Krems, Austria in 2011 on a residency at Krems AIR. It's part of a body of work that was called Venus Was Her Name, which narrated this fictional idea of me and my own self-portrait speaking to the Venus of Willendorf, a Paleolithic era sculpture found in the neighboring town of Willendorf, neighboring town to Krems. And us narrating a story of ourselves as textile women and women artists across kind of millennia. And I guess this idea came from the fact that the Venus of Willendorf was originally thought to be a fertility figure, and was named the Venus of Willendorf by male historians and archaeologists, and later was in recent scholarship there is projected potential for the Venus of Willendorf and other Venus figurines to have been self-portraits authored by women, and a dedicated focus in this scholarship on the fact that all of the Venus figurines had textile components on their body. So in the Venus of Willendorf, it's a hat. In other Venus figurines found in parts of Europe, they're a belt, a necklace, a piece of clothing around the waist. So the figures are naked or nude, all but for this textile element, which with more textile conservators and other experts looking at these works are saying they're actually really very correct to the techniques of the time as well, which has informed some of these ideas that they may have been self-portraits, or they may have been portraits of textile women who worked with textiles. So there's also in this history of the Venus of Willendorf, when she was named the Venus of Willendorf, it was done so as a joke to belie the comparative differences between the Venus of Willendorf and classical idealized images of femininity, such as the Venus de Milo. And so they were saying essentially she failed to fulfill that idealized version of womanhood, and so her name was given to her as a joke. And so the whole show and my portrait was a way of reclaiming a subjective image of oneself, where you write the narrative, and you write the narrative yourself or you write it with other women. So In My Skin was knitted in two ways. It was machine knitted in sections. I would measure my leg, for example, and then I would machine knit a section of the leg, and then I pick up with hand knitting parts of the body, such as the feet, the hands, the face, and the breasts. So these more three-dimensional formed parts of the body were knitted, by hand on a circular needle. The whiteness of the skin, this kind of almost marble color of the skin, is something that refers also to those comparisons between the Venus of Willendorf and the Venus de Milo and other classical sculptures. I was conscious of that sense that idealized womanhood, that which is whiteness and slimness and containment and purity, these projections we upon us are still carried into the culture we live in now. And so there's a sense of that being embedded into our skin, but also in this work of it being cast off and laid aside, of putting it to the side and in the knitting of the work and the small mistakes and little sort of snags and things like that, is a sense of saying the body is vulnerable, the body is unique, it's flawed, it's imperfect, it is not what it should be from the outside, it's what it is from the inside. And there was a sense of wanting in that work to write the inside out. So my way of, I suppose, reflecting that the skin of who we are is something that is inside of us. It's not a surface. It's not an object for others. It's something that is our inside, is what makes up our self, our reflective inside. And so I knitted the work with knit purl, so knit and purl stitch. So there's like this. You have a right side, which is called the knit side, and you have the wrong side, which is called the purl side. And so in this work, the purl side is what's facing out. And for me, that was a way of almost turning the skin inside out, where that reflective inside becomes the surface of the skin and the texture of who we are. I also was thinking of it in terms of that kind of marble color. I was thinking of it almost like a ghost, like a ghost of who I was, and thinking about how, in a sense, that Venus of Willendorf sculpture is also becomes like a shadow of the person who was once there. And thinking about how these objects become invested, these relics or these artworks become invested with the spirit of the person who was there, and they tell stories and they narrate connections for time, like for a time past, even when the artist is living. So even when I'm gone, things I've knitted, like I knitted myself a burial suit in another work, or I've knitted images of my mother and my father, and I've knitted an armor for my child, and I've knitted this skin, and these things will outlive me. They will be left. So this piece of me and the rhythms of my body as I knit and sew these works together are left. And they're left as a material imprint. And so I think for me, that sense of the whiteness of the skin is almost like the ghost of me that will be there when I'm not. I knitted also 2 versions of my face. So there was one, which the first version that I didn't like as much, and it sat on a table near the sculpture. There was a table of small objects in the exhibition, and I laid that face, this other face, there, and that was a way also of kind of reiterating the way in our skin, in our lifetime, we shed these many skins, and we have these many faces that we share to the world. And so I think by having multiple images of myself as well in the same exhibition, I was thinking about the way we construct who we are by all of the choices we make and the connections we have and the things that happen to us and the things we touch and the people we touch and the way we are loved or touched or held. These things are embedded into our social fabric of who we are.